Hey everybody, what's happening? It's Carissa Lynn Renner here. Welcome to the League of Unreasonably Confident Women, the show where we uplift the voices of those who challenge the status quo by loving the shit out of themselves. I have a beautiful guest with me today named Jessica Soares. I'm so excited to get to know her, and I know you're going to get a ton of value from her. She is a sovereignty coach and an empowerment coach specializing in helping women create life by design, which is a mission very true to my own heart. She believes that for far too long, far too many people have allowed themselves to live lives that were never truly their own, and that the path of real fulfillment comes in unapologetically owning your life. I couldn't stand behind that statement anymore. And so I'm going to bring her on in just a sec, but first things first, I don't have awesome signal today, so hopefully you guys can hear Jessica loud and clear, and if I'm not great, then whatever. I'm visiting my folks in St. Louis, but I know Jessica's message is going to come through loud and clear. And secondly, if you're enjoying this, make sure you hit share or tag a friend or help me get this out into the world and past the Facebook algorithm so that we can cultivate a community of unreasonably confident women. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to bring Jessica on right now.
Hello.
Hey girl. Hi, Jessica.
Hi, Carissa. Good to see you. How are you?
Oh, I'm so good. It's really lovely to meet you. You are someone I don't already know, which a lot of my guests are people that are already in my network. So this is a big plus for me to expand my network as well as get a new voice in my ears as well as my audience's ears. So I'm really grateful for you being here.
I'm so grateful to be here, and I'm so excited to chat with you. That beginning intro, by the way, is epic. I was just like, whoa.
Thank you.
I already feel unreasonably confident. This is amazing.
Woo! That's right. So tell me a little about you. Where are you in the world? How did you get into being a self-sovereignty and empowerment coach? And kind of what's your story?
Yeah, I would love to. So my name is Jessica Soares, as Carissa said, and I'm currently in Cabo Verde, which is a collection of 10 little islands, an archipelago off the west coast of Africa. And I'm half Cape Verdean, half Mozambican. My dad is Mozambican and my mom is Cape Verdean. I was born in Portugal and I grew up mostly in Ethiopia, and I lived in New York for the last 8 years. So I am what they call a third culture kid. Please don't ask me the question, where are you from? Because it does send me into like a mini identity crisis. I'm like, I don't know all these places, but none of these places really. And so it's actually been really interesting being back or coming to my home, one of my home countries, one of my passport countries, for the longest chunk of time I've ever spent. So before COVID, I had just come to like drop off my shit and then go traveling. And 2 weeks before I was set to take off, the world as we knew it came to a halt. And so I've been here since December 2019, which is the longest I've ever spent in the country that I'm actually like from, my passport is from, which has been a really interesting experience. And how did I find my path to empowerment coaching? I've always had a very interesting and tenuous relationship with power versus, my own and external power. And I very much, when I was in school, was sort of sent the message repeatedly through different means, through direct means, indirect means, that I'm too much, right? I got a lot of that, like, oh, you're just a lot. You're too intense, you're too sensitive, too opinionated. Pretty much who you are as you are is not okay. And like many people, like many children, I internalized that message. And for me, it operated in this really weird dynamic where, yes, I would try to take up less space and shrink, but more often than not, I would turn the dial up, right? So I was just like, if you're going to call me sensitive or opinionated or unreasonable, I'm going to be all those things like times 10, right? My shadow was like, we're going to push through it. We're going to make it a wall so that no one comes in and hurts us. And I've always been really interested in metaphysics and tarot and astrology. I started trying to consciously and deliberately astral project when I was like 7 years old.
I love that.
Yeah, and it was like this really funny thing. And one of my best friends, Ida, will like periodically ask me, she's like, have you managed to astral project yet. I'm like in my dreams all the time, consciously not yet, but like I'll get there one day and I'll tell you about it. So I've always really been into the metaphysics and the esoteric and the things that are felt but maybe not seen. And then when I moved to New York, I moved to New York. I went to NYU for my undergraduate, where I created my own concentration, which was the intersection of performance and psychoanalytic theory, right? So
I love this.
Thank you. I got to combine my two big passions, which is performance, storytelling, acting, and how the hell do people think? Why do they think? What motivates them? And all of the psychological kind of inquiries. And then after I graduated, I went to a 2-year professional conservatory training, which was, in those 2 years, it was like the combination of my awakening, dark night of the soul, rebuilding, breaking, like all of those things. Like I say to everyone, if everyone could go through year 1 of Meisner acting training, I think the world would be a very different place. Like it really cracked me open to me. And yeah, it was really, really powerful. And in that time, I also started to take meditation really seriously. So I started working at a meditation studio in 2016. And then from there, I just like became really involved with like personal development and wellness. And I was always really, really interested. I had my own therapist and my own coach. And then at some point I was like, okay, well, I'm going to take this like coaching certification program to deepen my own like personal development, you know, like many people do with yoga teacher training. And at that point I had like 2 people that had already asked me like, oh, are you a coach? Like, are you a life coach? What do you do? And then the third person was, again, my best friend, Ida. And she's like, you should become a life coach. And I was like, okay, universe, 3. And I did the certification more like for me, right? And then again, COVID happened. And I was like, okay, well, I have all of this time and space. I'm not working. I have this money saved up. Well, what am I going to do? And the answer just like really unfolded right in front of me. And so last year in July, I finished my certification because I had one of those, like, I didn't do the last like 2 modules, you know, the sneaky ways that self-sabotage. And yeah, you know, that's that. Now I'm here chatting to you.
I love this so much. Yeah, I see a lot of parallels in my own story with you as well. And I'm also a performer. I'm a vocalist. So, you know, kind of combining the transcendental states you can find in performance with how the mind works and how the ego works, and all of that has been a really fascinating journey. And yeah, I came to this work in the same way. I think many of us do, you know, through our own dark night of the soul, our own exploration. You know, what am I doing here? Like, you know, my life felt like it was moving backwards at one point, and I was like, I need something to change. And it really was this catalyst for this beautiful unfolding into to where I am now, which is teaching beautiful singers how to sing with their whole body and with their whole soul, and to write and to like let go of others' expectations, but also now, you know, working with women to live a life that is self-sovereign. So I want to ask you about that a little bit, because in 2021 at the new year, you know, everybody's like, what's your word for the year? And I chose sovereignty this year for myself. And I realized afterward that, like, I feel like people maybe have some different definitions of what that actually means and how that applies and what that looks like. So I would love to hear from you, like, what does sovereignty mean to you?
Yeah, it's so funny. I actually had this conversation with a client earlier today. She asked me the exact same thing. And
it's a big word, and it's like it's a buzzword now, but I think it's a relatively new trend to talk about it. So
yeah, it is this, it can be. And I think with things that become buzzwords, like often they are very nebulous, right? Like they don't have like a straightforward black and white definition, which is actually what I love about the word sovereignty, because I think in defining it, people find their own sovereignty, right? Like, what does it actually mean for you? It's this really like meta definition unpacking cycle. And for me, I think that it really is about like calling back and owning all of your power, right? All of your existence, all of your choices, the way that you spend your energy, the way that you engage with the world, right? Like none of it is by accident. None of it is simply a result of something else. It's very intentional. And I think that the reason why that is so radical in our society is that most of the time we are operating out of conditioned thought. Most of the time we are operating out of behavior that has been indoctrinated, brainwashed, whatever you want to call it, conditioned into us. Whether it's the behavior that we've seen modeled by our parents, by our peers, by our larger culture, by the media, by the people around us, we take on so much of other people's beings, other people's way of moving through the world. And very rarely, until something terrible happens, right? Whatever that may be, we realize that, oh my God, hold on. I have not been living my life. I've been walking down someone else's path. I've been going down the tried and trodden rather than like veering this way, because uncertainty, the unknown, is so damn terrifying for humans. Rightfully so. I understand why it's so terrifying. However, for me, that's essentially what sovereignty comes back to. It's like, I'm going to do things my way, right? And this isn't to say like ignore your larger society. You're not a part of a community, because we're all parts of communities. But make sure first that you are honoring your own heart, even if that means along the way you're going to make mistakes, because you can always learn and grow and change. And that's pretty much guaranteed. You are going to make mistakes, but make your mistakes. Don't make someone else's mistakes. It's the whole point.
I love this. Yeah, I agree. It's kind of not needing so much permission from others to do what your heart, what did you say? Your heart's calling. You used a beautiful phrase just a second ago. But it's like, let's see. I think the fear of the unknown, you're right, is very natural. It's very much, it's a safety mechanism. It's so important. But for some reason, it's all these like guaranteed things in life that we are so afraid of, right? Like, and it's an interesting thing, because it's like we're guaranteed to die, for example, right? And death is the most terrifying thing for everyone. And grief, the feeling of losing someone, is so terrifying, and rightfully so. It's so scary. It's so hard to go through. Change is inevitable. There's always going to be change, and change scares us. I feel like, and people come into coaching often wanting to just find this happiness. And it's like, I want to be happy all the time. And I think part of our job as coaches is saying like, hey, happiness isn't a constant. Nothing is constant. Everything is cyclical. And teaching self-sovereignty to me is like learning to embrace those moments of, the change, the chaos, the constriction, the grief, and knowing that those are part of the human experience, and they're beautiful, and they expand you to be able to receive and project more light. The dark expands the light. So it's like every time you go through that. So yeah, I think, and that message of like, life is short, go do what your heart is calling for, instead of what, maybe grandma thinks you should do. Or, I had dinner with some of my aunts the other night. They're beautiful women. My mom is the youngest of 9 kids, and her sisters are all in their 70s now. And post-COVID, finally got to go see and sit down to dinner with them. And it was just such an interesting thing to listen to their own biases and their judgments toward our generation, toward even my mom being, a handful of years younger, even though she is, in their generation, but she's the baby, and they're not wrong, and they're not bad for doing it. It's just, we all have our own set of conditioning. And I don't think many women in that generation had the luxury of doing whatever they want.
Yeah. And I think that's actually something that I come back to a lot in my coaching work, and just like in my relationships with people, is that we have luxuries that the generations before us didn't. And I think that that's so important to acknowledge, right? Like, I constantly come back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Like, as a collective, we are climbing up that pyramid slowly. But let's not forget that for a lot of us, our parents, our grandparents, they were actually concerned with our physiological needs: food, shelter, water, right? Like, they weren't thinking about self-actualization, right? I think about this with my own parents all the time. I live in thinking about self-actualization and fulfilling those needs, but I've never had to worry about having the other ones fulfilled. And that is a luxury, and it's a privilege. And it's not something to be like, feel guilty about. It's just the context, right? And having that awareness when we have these discussions or conversations with people that, like, maybe are a generation removed, maybe they're culturally in a different state, or, whatever that may be, that like multiple things can be true at the same time. And I think part of being a sovereign being is allowing other people to be sovereign beings, right?
Oh my gosh, yes, that's amazing. I believe that we are living in this yes and time where it's like that they're both true and they both belong. I love that so much. Let's see. So I obviously use the voice, and you spoke a little bit about acting, but I think the voice is a really interesting topic to talk about because it's a physiological thing, obviously, like your actual voice, but there's singing voice, there's speaking voice, there's written voice, there's creative voice, there's the voice that you embody through your choices in clothing and where you live and who you hang out with. And there are so many ways to have a voice. And I think this ties beautifully into the idea of sovereignty because the voice is that very unique piece of you. It's as unique as your fingerprint. It's to me, it's the proof of divine. It's the proof that there's no one like you, and there never has been, and there never will be. And you are worthy and beautiful and whole and complete. So the voice is so special to me. And I would love to kind of hear your thoughts on what it means to have a voice and what it means, maybe like we were just talking about, generationally or geographically.
Yeah. I love that you work with the voice as your entry point. One of my most powerful, impactful teachers / healers, he is a voice like practitioner. He comes in through the voice too. And all of my work with him has been like life-changing.
You'll have to introduce me. I want you to connect to me afterwards.
Yeah,
okay.
I will, definitely. He's incredible. What does it mean to have a voice? I think that I think that inherently we all have a voice. I think that we have created a society in which not all of our voices are heard or are allowed to be heard. And so in that, a lot of us have suppressed our true voice, right? And that is part of like not being sovereign. We are regurgitating the words, the stories of other people. And from where I'm sitting, having a voice and owning your voice is about unapologetic expression of your story, of your opinion, of your point of view, right? I have a lot and do a lot of throat chakra work. Like it's probably my most important chakra in this lifetime. Like I use my voice for almost all the things that I love the most. And the way I think of this chakra is sort of like it's the like birth canal. It's like the entry point for the things that we like pull up from the ground and the things that we pull down from the divine. It's where our translation, our interpretation comes out, right? So your voice is your unique lens of seeing the world. Like you said, it's so completely unique. And I think that for me, I always say that stories are the most powerful agents of change, right? Like really tapping into allowing people to tell their stories and listening with an open heart. It's almost impossible to not like empathize. And for me, that is what is like using your voice, is telling your story, making your opinion known, making your thoughts known, even when you're afraid you're going to be wrong. It's really important. Your perspective, your point of view is valid and it's needed. Like we are a total puzzle and we're all unique little pieces. So we need every single person to play their part, not try to play someone else's part.
Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah, I mean, that is the proof of the voice, right? If it was meant to be like someone else's, it would be, and it's not for a reason, because there is this beautiful tapestry that is required. And I think, yeah, there's so much of our culture, especially in the US, that's my only vantage point, at least. So I'll speak to that. Where we have really just focused on one voice being right, and everybody tries to be like this voice. And if you're not like this voice, then you're considered less than somehow. And I think that's sort of the journey we're on right now, which is obviously a very painful and bumpy one, is learning to hear other people's experiences and their stories and not gaslight them because it's not the same as our own, and not dismiss that because it's not how my experience has been, right? So learning to really honor others' voices and say, hey, I hear you. I believe you. I believe you is so important because, I think that's one of the greatest causes of human suffering is feeling outside or less than, or feeling like nobody believes you or takes you seriously. That causes a lot of pain. And, when you multiply that across, cultures and cities and generations, it gets really loud and very, very painful.
Absolutely. And it's not easy work because, like you said, we have globally, in a way, right? Like it's a little different when you go to different countries. Of course, every cultural background has its own set of stories, but globally there is generally one predominant narrative, right? And one of my favorite TED Talks is Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's, which is The Dangers of a Single Story. It's so good. And so we have created a society, a culture where that is the voice that we're like, yes, right? That's the voice we say yes to. That's the voice that is superior. So we believe we have to mold ourselves, change our voice to be like that voice. And in doing that, we create more struggle, more friction for everyone. But, right, we, like you said, we all want to belong. We all want to feel like we belong. So it's understandable that people are trying to mold themselves to that voice. And at the same, again, and we live in this time of and at the same time, real change, real transformation happens when we are courageous enough to be like, I'm going to be different from this voice, which might mean that some people will look at me and they'll say no.
Yeah.
But I know that I'm a yes, right? Like there are multiple truths. It's that validation. It's that like, I believe you. I hear you. I trust you. Like I see you. You are telling the truth, right? Because it's this feeling like if we're constantly being gaslit or being told that we're lying, that's like hard on the human heart and nervous system to like repeatedly hear. So we shrink ourselves, we hide our voice. And I think in the reclamation of all of that is where all the like juiciness and magic lives.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's been such an amazing process of my own, at least like even just stepping into coaching, a year ago, even just like saying the word life coach. Like I still don't call myself a life coach. I call myself a transcendental or transformational vocal coach, because the voice is my point of entry. But it's like there is this fear and I face it. It's so great. Like sitting down with my aunts the other day, I posted about the voice and the vagina being connected. And then the aunts all had a heyday with it. They're like, oh, my husband wants you to come over and talk to me about it. And then my dad was the second person to comment on it, and I was like, oh my God, my dad is this like the comment, like, it's like, hey. And so it was like kind of some of my worst fears of visibility, right? Like that I'm going to be judged by people who are more conservative than me or who don't think I should talk about that in public, or like my own father is going to be, in the comment section of a post that said orgasm at least 3 times, is like, no, like, but I didn't die. I'm okay. And this unfolding of saying like, hey, it's okay to be seen. You're safe to be seen. Your nervous system can handle this. Your tribe can handle this. I think that's really important as people are stepping into this narrative of sovereignty. But I will say I did lose friends along the way in this journey. Did you have that experience as you were awakening and stepping into your power?
Honestly, not really. Luckily enough, it's like tricky because I feel like I have been, since I was little, rebellious by nature. Like I've always been pushing back against people and sort of like F everything off, like F this system. Like I've always been like, I'm going to do it just because you tell me I can't. Like,
yes,
very absolutely. Like bratty, like sassy. So I think that the people that know me the most, like my friends, none of them were surprised by like the content I'm putting out there. So I didn't lose anyone close to me, right? Like as I go into my journey more and like step into myself more, I have already like started to work with myself and my nervous system. It's like, okay, if that comes up, what am I going to do? Like, what is my role in dealing with that? Because it does happen. And I was more kind of nervous about like my family, seeing those kinds of things, and it like, which was also for me kind of a irrational fear because my family has always been like wildly supportive. Like I started reading tarot and my mom and dad are like, amazing. Like, I'm like, I'm going to go to New York and be an actor. They're like, fantastic. Like whatever we do, they like love, but also like, as I openly talk about more and more things, I know that's going to be like, okay. Like I either have to talk to mom and dad like before or like, cause I don't want to like hide stuff from them, but that's my impulse. I'm like, hide this post from
Right. Right.
Oh, which is so, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I definitely found my family is also very supportive. But it's as my resonance has changed, I have seen some shifts in my tribe. And I think the pandemic played into that a lot as well, that put physical distance between people who I was seeing regularly. But it was interesting, like as my beliefs about money changed, the people that I resonate with changed. As I don't commiserate anymore. I really don't like complain a lot these days, and I don't want to talk trash or gossip. Like I find people that I don't really resonate with anymore. And I think that's a beautiful thing, but that is one of those harder things of really coming into your power. I think it is knowing that like some of the relationships previously may not serve you anymore. And I'm glad to hear that wasn't your experience, but yeah, there is a sense of like self-preservation that comes forth when you enter into a spot of visibility and vocalness. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that some relationships can survive it and some can't really, like is what it comes down to. Because there are going to be some people that like, maybe you're not in resonance at the exact same time, but they still like have love for you and like can admire you. And you're just like, yeah, like they're still cheering you on. It's when you start to feel that energy of like not cheering you on, or like the psychic vampire, or just to like wanting you to fail. That's when I'm like, no, please get out of my sphere. Like I don't have tolerance for that.
I love it so much. Well, I want to be respectful of your time, so let's wrap up. But let me ask you one quick last question, or maybe two. We'll see if we have time. If you could give every woman in the world a piece of advice and you know that she would take it, what would your advice be?
Oh my God. Oh God. I've said this before on a live, and I will say it again. And I don't know if this is even like advice, because I feel like it's like an operating system, but if it was a shift I could make, is that for everyone collectively to at the same time choose love. Operate out of a place of love and faith rather than fear, because I genuinely believe that if that happened, I don't know if it's possible in the world that we live in, right? Because we're talking about generations, ancestry, past lives. But if that all happened at the same time, a whole world as we know it would change. And I do really believe that.
Yeah, I do too. And yeah, right. It may not happen in our lifetime, but I do think there are people like yourself out there doing the work and leading that revolution toward love. And I really think that's the only place we can make sustainable change from, because any change that comes out of fear-based or self-hatred is not going to last, right? Even if the result is achieved temporarily, it's not going to be sustainable. So Absolutely. I love that so much. And then this may actually be sort of the same, maybe just an extension of what you just said, but the last prompt I have is finish this sentence. I hold a vision of a future where?
I hold a vision of a future where everybody is free to be exactly who they are.
Oh, I love it so much.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to be respectful of your time and say goodbye, but I do want you to tell us where we can find you online and elsewhere, anything you want to promote. And if you have anything you'd like them to come interact with you, go ahead and talk about that a little. And I'll make sure that I link up to you in the comments.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun. I wasn't even like watching the clock. I'm such a chatter that I'm like, I feel like I should warn people.
I should do the same, because I can go forever. We could keep going if you want, but I'm telling you, I will talk all day.
This is amazing. We should definitely do this again. So yes, you guys can all find me on Instagram. Is probably where I'm most active, at the Jessica Soares, my first name and my last name, or my website, www.jessicasoarescoaching.com. You could also, I think you can send me a friend request on Facebook. I believe that I have made it so that you can send me a friend request, but just like pop a message and be like, hey, I'm following you from the League of Unreasonably Confident Women. Because, that Facebook, people be getting lots of random requests. And At the moment, I am launching my inaugural group program, which is called Unchained and Untamed. And we're going to be doing a lot of this work, a lot of like liberation and shadow work and, embodiment work, performance-based work. It's more than just group coaching. It's, if I say so myself, the best thing I've ever created. And I'm super excited about it. And there are only 3 spots left. So if any of what I said today like speaks to you, resonates with you, send me a message on Instagram and we can chat. And other than that, I would love to offer all of you access to my mini course, which is called Becoming Brilliant: How to Overcome the Fear of Success. Because I do believe that to be an unreasonably confident woman, you cannot fear success. And that's a sneaky one that comes up.
It sure is. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I will make sure to link to all that in all the right places. And I'm going to go through it. This is one of my favorite things about doing these series is I get to go through everybody's stuff and enjoy their work. And I can't wait to interact with you more in that space.
Yes, me too. This was so wonderful. This is a great start to my Friday evening, which I'm going to enjoy the rest of.
Yeah. What time is it where you are?
It's 6:30.
Nice. Okay. Well, have a wonderful evening. Thank you for your time. It was so fun chatting with you. And we'll definitely do it again, especially if the signal is weird. I'll check in the replay. But but either way, I would love to spend more time with you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Jessica.
Thank you so much. Have a happy Friday.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. And remember, if you did love what you received today, please be generous with it, share it out into the world, tag a friend who might want to hear it as well, and help me end up not in the spam folder of the internet, but rather in the hands and ears of somebody who could really use this and love it as much as we do. We're live every single Friday here on Facebook at 12 p.m. And there's an exclusive community you can join to get all the behind the scenes action. Link is in the comments below. I'll see you next week. Thank you so much.